a lot of ways. But I kind of feel like Lightroom's is gaining a lot more momentum in just people only using Lightroom. I'm also going to go over the Capture One Pro, Silverfast DC Pro Studio, and Flex Color. It's a really old version of Flex Color that I've screen captured, but the concepts and a lot of dialog boxes are exactly the same in the new software. Primarily, I'm bringing those up because they support actual ICC profiles. There are other products like this, but these are some of the more common ones. Capture One Pro offers a 30-day free, fully functioning demo, so you can play with it and see what it does. Silverfast offers, I don't know if it's a time limited, but it puts watermarks all over your images. So I couldn't actually go in and build profiles in it, but you can, again, if you just want to use the default settings, you can feel the interface out and see if you like it or not. And then if you're using Flex Color, you know who you are and that's what you're using. This runs the Flex scanners and also all Hasselblad digital backs. They did just come out with a new product, and I don't have access to that to review it at this point. But it just really gives you an idea of what's capable in other software packages.
And you're ignoring Aperture?
Yes. I'm not having a lot of call for it anymore. I have worked with it in the past, and it does a lot of the same things. But a lot of what we can do with these calibration tools really are only supported in Adobe products or in a product that supports true ICC profiles. You can accomplish a lot of the same things in Aperture, and I don't have a problem with it, but like I said, I'm not having a lot of demand for it anymore. It might be a marketing thing. It doesn't say it's not as good of a product at all. And like I said, a lot of what I'm covering tonight is just, this concepts will apply in other programs. You'll notice that, like, for example, white balance, it's an option in every one of them. So if you're doing white balance, you're going to be doing it no matter what program you're running. So if you pick up the concepts here, you can apply this to whatever software you're using. Oh, I skip a few. All right. My mouse went to sleep, I think. OK, white balance. On the camera, you have white balance presets. You got a little picture on the top, a circle with some things coming off of it. That's sun. A building with shadow, that's shade. I'm not going to go over all of them, but the basic idea is that if you look at this little graph like we had before, the different frequencies of light, again, down the middle, where the frequencies are sort of a mixture of a lot of the frequencies, or less saturated area, you've got the more blue, less saturated, and the more yellow, less saturated. And you've also got these lines coming off which represent at 6,000 degrees Kelvin, which is a color temperature, the next setting I was going to go over on your camera. You're telling your camera, this right here is the color of light. But you're ignoring the fact that it might be a little bit more green or a little bit more magenta than actual right there on that intersection where it says 6,000 or 5,000 or whatever you have it set to. But keep in mind, when you're selecting a number, you're working on that line right there. If you do a custom white balance, what you're doing is you're sampling one of these gray cards, right? And it measures how much energy got bounced off this thing. So at those little 3 points, at those 3 frequencies where your camera is the most sensitive, it's saying those should be the same. And they're not because, well, every light's different. There's no such thing as a color of white. Or it varies dramatically. Our brains just fix it. So your camera needs to know what white is, or in this case, gray. But the idea is that it needs to know what that is. And you can set a custom white balance. Basically, just take a picture of that. You go to Menu. You go to Custom White Balance. And it says which picture. And you select the picture you just took of your gray card. It then says, go set it to Custom White Balance on the little scroll wheel on the top. And now your camera knows what neutral is. This, again, primarily talks about shooting JPEGs. But I have had a number of people say that if you do that, it saves you time later because you don't have to worry about every single one. You have And you also, the little preview on the back of the camera is more accurate now. So if you're shooting indoors, you don't end up with an overly yellow screen that you could fix later. When if you'd fix it beforehand, you get a little more accurate preview, and you could maybe notice something in the picture that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. My camera actually also allows for a white balance shift, which I didn't even know was there until I went looking at researching all of these options. And what that allows you to do is set it to 5,000 degrees Kelvin and then move it just a little bit to one direction and then off to another direction. And then it also even allows you to then bracket, okay? So you can tell it, I'm going to set it to 6,000, but I'd like you to bracket for me a picture that's a little more green and a little more magenta, and when I get back, then I can decide. So if you are shooting, just JPEGs, you've got that option of having, just like it brackets exposure, bracketing the color temperature. Again, I didn't even know that was there. And I'm sure not a lot of cameras would have that, but it appears that the EOS professional line does. Okay, so in your raw conversion software, you photograph the white balance card. Okay, not overly complicated, but keep in mind, in a mixed lighting condition, where you've got daylight, indoor, you've got a dark room with light coming in the windows, but you've got a candle. What do you want to be the primary dominant color? Okay, this is a key kind of thing here. If you white balance on that candle, it'll look really blue in the rest of the room, but the candle will look white. If you white balance near the window, you'll get that nice warm glow of the candle. That's this creative effect that you need to keep in mind, because our brains compensate for a lot of those differences. If you're really aware of it, though, you will notice that if you're in a daylight room and you look in, if you have fluorescent lighting in one room and incandescent in the other, and you look into the other room, you'll notice it looks more yellow. But you really won't notice unless you don't think about it. But your camera will notice, and if you picked one, it'll make that one neutral, and everything in that room, all white, will look white, or gray things will look gray. But as you look into that other room, or you look into the light spilling in the window, it will create a whole different look. And if you understand that concept, that that's what you're doing when you white balance, you get to pick, should I split the difference and have some blue and some yellow light? Should I just get rid of the yellow and have the blue coming in? So it's something you keep in mind, because mixed lighting and digital is a bigger challenge than at least some films were. They were less sensitive. And then again, on RAW, you have the option of setting it to get the accurate preview. You can optionally do it on the camera and not just shoot it and worry about it later. Okay, so really quickly, back to that frequencies of light thing. This is a gray card, right? And it's trying to reflect back the same amount of energy that it receives, which is why we see it as gray. So when we bounce daylight off of it, it goes, oh, I saw a lot of blue, and I saw a little bit less yellow, green, and even a tiny bit less red. But when you bounce this off of it, it says, whoa, I barely saw any blue, and I saw a lot more green and a lot more red. And what it does is it says, okay, then I need to reduce the red a lot, maybe not reduce the green much at all, but increase the blue. Fluorescent, okay, this is a fairly accurate compact fluorescent bulb. Really, I've measured a lot of them. Like I said, I've done a lot of research on lighting. This is one of the most accurate compact fluorescent bulbs, not a tube-based, but this kind you get in your house. It's got some strange things going on, and so the white balance is almost, even more important, but yet kind of a challenge with something like this, because it might pick up that green and go, oh, there's a lot of it, when in reality, on average, there's not that much. And like I said, this really comes into play when you're photographing. This is a skin tone, okay? Nice, normal skin tone. It's got some blue, a little bit more of this kind of blue, then it goes back down for the green, and there's some red here. There's quite a bit more red, but if you lost all this blue, you'd end up with a red skin tone. And if you saw way more, if you reduced the amount of red too much, you'd end up with a really blue skin tone or an orange or whatever. So getting that balance between how much green there is, how much blue there is, how much red, especially in things like a skin tone, it can be you could be a little bit off and it'll look really